be able to test
Some of them,
for some of those things?
some of them, yes. It depends on the EPA and what they certify us in. It's kind of a drawn out process to get certified in other things, so sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. So every month, we submit a discharge monitoring report to the Iowa DNR. This gives them a complete report of the test results to monitor compliance or violations on the NPDES permit. So for the year 2022, the city had 4 violations. 3 of them were E. coli, which we knew we were gonna fail because we don't have UV disinfection to take care of that yet. And the 4th one was a toxicity test. We've been struggling for years failing these. It's got a lot to do with chlorides in the water, which is part of the RO, part of on the water side. So that's all in the plans to get fixed. Another disturbing thing coming up, November of 2023, our new permit limits come into effect on nitrogen, phosphorus, chloride, and dissolved oxygen. We don't have the processes or ability to meet these limits. So there's a possibility we could be facing 1,000 to 1,500 violations a year compared to the 4 we had this year. So we're moving forward on trying to get that figured out, but we're not gonna have it done by November, no chance.
Those violations on DNR or EPA
It's to the DNR, but the EPA,
is overseeing it?
yeah.
Okay, so if we're on a road to recovery, or a road to fixing our problems, that's, I know it's just your opinion, I'm assuming that is, taken into consideration.
Yes, so we can file for an extension of this deadline, but we need to have concrete plans in place. We can't say, well, we're talking about it, we might get something fixed. You gotta have some concrete plans saying, hey, we're engineered, we're gonna go out for bids, we can extend it until we can get it done.
We have a plan.
Yeah.
Correct, okay, thank you.
Does the expansion that we're talking include all these limits?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
So 2022 pre-treatment violations. So we have a pre-treatment agreement between the city of Lamar's and both major industries. When they violate our pre-treatment agreements, we do fine them. Last year, Wells had 52 violations, and DFA Kemp's had 24 violations. So the wastewater lab also tracks the design capacity of the parameters CBOD and TSS. For CBOD in 2022, we were operated at 103% of design capacity. For TSS, we operated at 86% of design capacity. So it's a little bit scary when we're pushing that plant that hard for that long, and this isn't something new that just came up. We've been doing this for a couple of years probably. It leads to more breakdowns, more chances of violations. It's just not a sustainable situation we're in, and it also leads to odor complaints, and that's, I mean, I talked to the mayor more times this summer than I wanted to, so we have our issues.
He'd like to talk about other things.
Yeah. So as I mentioned in my last annual report, in the fall of 2021, EPA did conduct a full compliance inspection of the wastewater facility. That investigation is still ongoing. They did contact us, I believe, in August this year. They needed more information and more data, so they're still looking at us. But we do not have any final report yet to know if we're gonna get slapped with a compliance order or not. So moving on to the wastewater staff, currently 8 full-time employees. As most of you are aware, at the end of 21, we went through a pretty high turnover. 2 big retirements and another one moving on to greener pastures. So we had a little bit of a shake-up at the wastewater plant. So I took over as superintendent. Tyler was promoted to assistant superintendent. We had Chad promoted to lab supervisor, and then Christy was promoted to lab technician. So we all have a year in our new roles, and everything's going pretty smooth there. Dan, our senior operator, he'll have 35 years in this year. I anticipate him retiring this year. So we're losing a lot more experience. Our newer operators, Casey, is coming up on 3 years. He's got his grade 2 already. He caught on really quick and was a great operator. Derek was hired in, I believe, February. He was already able to get his grade 1. He's progressing good. And then our new guy, Lucas Hauser, hired in August, I believe. He'll be taking his grade 1 test in March of that's when he's eligible. So everybody's progressing good there. The wastewater staff responded to 22 sewer calls and 46 callbacks by the SCADA system. Some of them sewer calls come in during business hours, most do not. All of our 46 callbacks, that's all after hours stuff, 2 in the morning, Saturday, Sunday, so it requires a lot of the staff to respond to all those. The staff also completed over 1,800 work orders. That's our preventative maintenance stuff, changing oil, greasing, changing belts, changing filters to make sure the stuff keeps running. Moving on to our biosolids. 7.1 million gallons of digested biosolids generated. That was land applied to 521 acres by umbilical injection. That's actually down quite a bit from last year. Last year we did 9.9 million. Couple reasons, back to the hot, dry stuff. We had a lot of evaporation, didn't have rainfall filling up our lagoons. But we also put a lot of time and effort into supernating off these lagoons. So what that means is as that biosolid sits in those lagoons, the solids will settle out, there'll be a clearish liquid on the top. We can pull that clearish liquid back out and run it through the plant and rerun it. So we're talking 2.8 million gallons that we saved at a 1.5 cents per gallon to get rid of it. Pretty worthwhile to focus in on that. Collection system. The city of Lamar's maintains approximately 72.5 miles of sanitary sewers throughout the city limits. Wastewater personnel inspect, rebuild, and repair 15 lift stations throughout the city. And sanitary sewer in section 3 was cleaned this year. We had 80,000 feet cleaned and just shy of 30,000 feet televised. That's something we do every year to stay on top of our sewer lines so we don't have blockages. And we find broken pipes or whatever when we televise so we can get them fixed. On to the next page, 2022 major accomplishments. We cleaned out primary digester number 2 and repaired some leaking valves at the bottom of it. That's something, we have 3 digesters out there at the plant now. We like to clean them out every 5 to 7 years. It's a pretty big undertaking. We do have to have a contractor come in. It involves a lot of big equipment and confined space entry, so that went pretty smooth this year. We installed a new natural gas boiler to replace our methane boiler. We've been trying to burn methane in the boilers for 15 years. It has not gone well. It costs more than what it's worth, so we finally just put a natural gas in. We installed a new lift station on 18th Street Southwest. That's out by Sapp Brothers to accommodate some new business out there. We fixed a broken pipe on East Valley Drive. We had found that televised the year before. It was a chunk missing out of a pipe in the middle of a street. We were able to have a contractor come in and put a band in there rather than tearing it up and do a full excavation. That same company, when they're in town, slip lined 441 feet of 8-inch clay pipe on First Street up to the 800 block. That clay pipe likes to let tree roots get through on the joints, and once that happens, it's a nightmare to keep clean. So clean it out, put a slip liner in there, and no more root problems. We installed new manhole rings and covers on Central Avenue during that time when they replaced all that. Rehabbed 165 foot of manholes. What I mean when I say that, a lot of these manholes are brick manholes, structurally sound, no problem. They allow to let groundwater flow into them. So we have a contractor that comes in and skim coats it with a watertight concrete and get rid of our inflow. Probably the biggest thing we accomplished this year was pig to 4 miles of industrial force mains. One of them was a 12-inch diameter, one was a 14-inch diameter. That had never been done since they were installed in 14, so nobody was positive that it was able to be done, so we got through it. It wasn't much fun, but. And then we pigged 2 miles of the 10-inch biosolids line. That's something we do ourselves every year. And then we did get started on our UV project. They got started here in the cold weather. They're making some progress, but it is a year-long project. That will not be operational until probably spring of '24. Excuse me. So some of our goals for 2023, slip lining problem sanitary sewer lines. cleaning and televising of section 4. We're gonna rehab more manholes throughout the city as we find them. Then we're continue working with the EPA and DNR Industries and our engineer to resolve our permit compliance, capacity issues, and upgrade options. So we're moving forward, but I'd like to be a little faster. Continue working with contractors on the UV disinfection project. Like I said, it's a year-long project, and we have a very small footprint, so we're tripping over each other, so we're getting through it. Next thing I want to address is problems with sewer lines on the railroad tracks. We have about 18 of them that cross under. A lot of them are cast iron pipes. What's happening is they're corroding and you can't get them clean. So we need to find some solutions to clean them out and get them slip lined. And we're working with the DNR on our NPDES permit renewal process. So our permit expires end of November of 23. So that involves a lot of paperwork and additional testing from the DNR, and then they'll give us another permit for what we have to meet. I'm gonna grab my water, 1 second, please. And lastly, on my goals is to stay ahead of breakdowns. Rich kind of alluded to it. You can't get parts, you can't get supplies. So it's almost to the point where you have to predict a breakdown 3 months in advance so you can order parts so you have it when you need it. So preventive maintenance is becoming huge. Make sure that the little problems don't become big problems because you can't get parts. And lastly, I just threw in a few pictures of some of the fun things we get ourselves into at Wastewater. So that first picture on the top, that was right before Christmas in that 30 below wind chill. Of course, we had one of our main pumps go down. So the guy spent 3 hours out in that, changing that out. Bottom left is after we had pigged out our industrial line. Filled up our stainless steel wet wells with a lot of stuff. So that's Tyler in there scooping it out. I have no idea why he's smiling.
Is that the industry term stuff?
What's that?
Industry term?
Yeah, that's a television safe term. So on the bottom right is our first concrete pour of the UV project. That was probably early December. And they're still pouring concrete. Hopefully this week they get another pour in. They did one last week again, so tough conditions to work in. Next page, top left, the guys are draining out a primary clarifier to replace some scraper mechanisms. The right-hand side is an ongoing problem we have. That's in our trickling filter. So that pinkish color you see, that's called tube effects worms. It's a reoccurring problem in there. We cannot get rid of them. They are tough to kill. So they like to plug up pumps and pipes and cause problems everywhere. Bottom left, that is a picture of our 10-inch force main pig. Most people don't understand what it means when you pig that line. So that is a hard foam bullet-looking thing with epoxy on it. Shove that in our pipe, and then we can fire up the pumps, and the pumps will push that pig through and scour that line clean. Last page, top is debris from after cleaning out an industrial force main. That's some of the goodies we found. I don't know how any of that stuff makes it down the drain, but it does. If you're in the industry business, you probably recognize a few of those things. And then the bottom picture of a chunk of grease out of that force main. That's my foot there, and I don't have that small of feet, so that's a pretty good chunk of grease. So that is all I got.
Any questions?
Somebody's missing a glove and a screwdriver hand.
Thanks, Doug.
You bet.
Thank you. Our mayor had a prior commitment, so as pro tem, I will finish up this meeting. Community development?
The 6-month report, next week, Wednesday is 6 months into this position.
When I took this position, leadership expressed a desire to do some long-term planning for the community, taking into account commercial, industrial, residential, and quality of life. And so last August, we sent out the RFPs. The mayor put together a selection committee. We selected a company to help us with our planning, which was ISG. And then the mayor put together a steering committee to work with ISG, and that's comprised of 10 people. And so we sent the background information in December to ISG. The steering committee met with ISG in person and put together some vision statements and some objectives for us to consider. And then the next step will be some input meetings with different groups and organizations throughout the community. And this will be some meetings that will take place over a period of 2 days next week out at the golf course banquet room. And there will be a series of 6 meetings where we invite many groups and organizations from the community to give their input on where they would like our community, what our community should look like in 20 years. And from that, ISG will take that information, bring it back, meet with the steering committee again to make sure that they heard what we had said, and then to start to put together some ideas as far as the plan goes. And the next step after that will be this spring, is to present some preliminary ideas to the steering committee and to the community. And that's when the community will have their chance to have input. And so at the back of the report that I gave you, there is a 2-page document that lays out the timeline of the plan, the deliverables in the plan, and you can see where we're at today and where we're going to be. But the goal is that we'll have a complete community development plan put together by the fall, which will be presented to the city council for adoption. And so that's where we're at with the community development plan. And then some industrial development updates. Probably the most important part of my job is business retention and expansion visits. And that's where I go out and meet with the largest employers in the community, and I ask specific questions to find out what their opportunities, challenges, and goals are at. And we need to do that on a pretty consistent basis, and I got to develop that relationship with the industry so we can find out if we as a community are supporting them properly, how we get them to the resources they need in order to grow, and just to work together to accomplish the growth of our community. But even more importantly, when things come up like the 12th Street intersection, to be able to go back and have that person in-house be that liaison to talk about challenges and get their input before we make decisions that impact them directly. So pretty important part of the process. The next thing for industry development updates is the Lamar's Industrial Park, which you guys just approved an engineering contract today. We've sold or in the process of selling 3 lots in our industrial park. And so what's happening is we're down to 6 lots along Industrial Road on the east and west side. That's not a lot for a community our size. And so we need to create some additional lots, so we decided until we get through the planning process to take the south side of 27th Street, since the street's already there, do some excavation, do some platting, and plat approximately 30 acres there. And so hopefully later this year, early next year, we'll have additional industrial lots to go ahead and offer to businesses for expansion or growth. And then the Southview Industrial Park, and earlier this fall, the South Industrial Park, you guys did approve hiring JEO to put together some plans for the South Industrial Park, which will now be named Southview Industrial Park. And what we identified is our industrial park lots are 3 acres or larger. But there is a whole group or a segment of businesses that don't need 3 acres. And that ½ acre to acre lot is inventory that we don't currently have. And so what we're working towards is to take that area where the Southview Industrial Park is and create those ½ acre to acre lots. And since we've talked about that, I've had several inquiries. When is that going to be done? When are they going to be available for sale? How much are they going to be? And we can't answer that now. but at least there's an awareness that we're working towards creating that inventory. And as we discussed earlier, when we were talking about when are we gonna do these things, as soon as we have these things done, we need to start talking about the next phases, because it takes 1.5 to 2 years to create these areas. And businesses aren't gonna wait until a business park is created. So the preparation is pretty critical for our growth. And so we're gonna get to the point where we have ample inventory, but then we just need to time the next group of inventory so we don't run out before businesses want to take advantage of those. So hopefully by the end of '23 or early '24, we have additional large lots available for sale in our industrial park, and we create smaller lots for other types of businesses. And then finally, as far as industrial development updates, is rail. Pretty critical to our community, and the city of Lamar's and LBIC and Burlington Junction partnered a number of years ago to create the transload facility. And one of the thresholds and goals that was set is 1,500 cars on an annual basis to run through that transload area. And up until 2022, we hadn't hit that 1,500 car mark. And what's significant about the 1,500 cars is once we hit that mark, there's some revenue generated for the city of Lamar's, and it's $25 a car once we hit that. And so in 2022, we hit 1,812 cars through that transload. So we had significant growth from 21 to 22. And we're currently working with Burlington Junction to expand the transload area to lots 1 and 2 in the industrial park. And we do have a business that is interested in buying those lots and doing additional cars. And their projections are by Q3, we could be doing several additional cars a day. And they're projecting somewhere between 300 and 500 more cars a year, in addition to the growth that we're having with our existing. So there's some pretty good opportunity for growth with this transload area. So there's some pretty good foresight in the community creating this, but the payback's starting to happen now, and the additional opportunities are starting to present themselves. So that's a nice opportunity for the community of Lamar's. Commercial development updates, you know, you guys talked about the former Public Works building earlier. You know, it's